Hello, good morning, Canadian footy fans. Welcome to another One Soccer Hangout. I'm hosting today's session. My name is Asa Rehman. I'm joined by my colleagues Gareth Wheeler and Oliver Platt. Welcome, fellas.
Good morning,
Hey,
Asa. How are you?
Good morning. Good morning. Doing well, thanks. Yeah, today's show we will be reviewing and reacting to the scrappy 2-1 win by Forge over Limeño on Thursday night in the preliminary rounds of the Concacaf League. A quick recap of the match in case you missed it. 21st minute, David Chouanier is played through beautifully by Boully. He scores to give Forge a 1-0 lead, but Limeño equalized through Kevin Oliveira in the 38th minute to make it 1-1 at the break. Second half, Jonny Grant picks up his second yellow in the 64th, forcing Forge to go down to 10 men for the remainder of the match. It looked like we were heading to a shootout potentially, but in the 83rd, Dominic Samuel found Anthony NOVAK at the top of the 18. 2 touches is all he needed to blast home the game winner. And in that moment, I think every Canadian Premier League fan across the country shouted, "YES-VAK." So, Wheels, I need to know if you were calling that match last night, would we have heard a YES-VAK in that moment?
Can I correct you? Because I think the entire country said NOVAK, YES-VAK. It's the combo. You can't just go just YES-VAK. Of course, that was the first thing that came to anyone's mind, obviously. And shout out to the broadcaster last night for giving me a shout out on the Alexander the Great call as well. Quality stuff. Honestly, it's what the team deserved. It was a really good finish by a player that was banged up to a certain degree at the Island Games. And good to see him back on goal-scoring form because honestly, Asa, when you saw the match play out last night, there's no comparison. Forge, for me, by far more quality in the team, a better group of players, but they played down to their opponent's level. And for it to really take the team to go down to 10 men, then come together, play organized and organized football, then end up finding a really good winner like that. I'm assuming it's going to give the team a lot of confidence heading into next week.
Yeah, it wasn't clean. Those two touches by NOVAK were beautiful, though, and you put it away nicely. Ollie, what does this mean for Forge FC as a club now after that historic win for them and the CPL, really?
Well, I think nights like this, like that one, are how you build a club, right? Like, as you said, everyone was celebrating that goal. I think if you're a Forge fan or not, maybe not if you're a York Nine or Cavalry fan, but most soccer fans would have been happy to see that go in. Like, producer Carl just told us before we went on air, he was actually nervous watching the game last night and celebrated the goal at the end. And again, he's not a fan. So I think when you see Canadian players and Canadian teams going on the world stage and the continental stage, and showing what they can do, showing that they can compete, showing they're no pushover, and getting results in other countries, it makes you feel something, that I think is, wins fans over, and it's kind of how you fall in love with the club. So it's a big night for them, and just another one of those nights where, as I said, you build a bit more of an identity to who you are and why you matter.
Well, NOVAK might have given us that snapshot from the match with the goal and the celebration. But who was the man of the match in this one? Was it Captain Kyle Becker, Boully, who was great as well, or maybe David Chouanier, who scored that first goal? Gareth, who was the man of the match for you?
It was Boully. I mean, the ball that he played through Chouanier. I mean, the game was begging for a little bit of quality, and I thought Boully brought it. He's so composed on the ball, and oftentimes with a sticky pitch like that in a game that's frenetic at times and rather messy, you need a player just to put their foot on the ball and add that little bit of quality and experience in attack. And I thought where some other players, some younger players might have kind of stepped away from the spotlight, Boully embraced it. And this is what I think Bobby Smyrniotis, Canadian soccer fans, expected when Boully came to this team. And look, he was influential in the Island Games final. He scored against Cavalry to punch their ticket to the Island Games final, and then plays really well here and is the man of the match in the Concacaf League. So that's 3 straight games where Boully has been one of, if not the best player in the park for Forge FC. And if that's the way forward, then look out, because Forge is a gem up top.
Same guy for you then, Ollie?
Yeah, Boully, no doubt. I thought as good as the assist was, I thought the work he did when they went down to 10 men, just holding the ball up, relieving pressure, taking care in possession, and making sure that, it wasn't a case of constant waves of attack coming back at Forge. That potentially saved the game for me. He just did an absolutely priceless job and built that platform for them to go on and get the winner.
In the pre-match conference on Wednesday, Kyle Becker said something that stood out to me, and I'm paraphrasing here, but he said basically these games can change your career. Who for you, as we do a little game called stock up or stock down, I want to hear who for you whose stock rose and whose stock went down after watching the 90 minutes against Limeño. Ollie, yeah, we'll go to you first. Whose stock rose for you in this game, in this match?
I think David Chouanier's stock is going up and has been. It was at the Island Games as well. I think he's starting to show us that he can be that kind of difference maker for Forge. I thought, through the first half, the first 60 minutes or so, he was probably the best player on the field last night. And then he scores in big moments as well. He's got 3 in 5 games in CONCACAF now, so he's taken a bit of a liking to this competition. And I think we'd probably be talking about him more if it wasn't for the way Bobby Smyrniotis kind of rotates his wingers, and particularly this year. They log a lot of miles, and he likes to keep them fresh and make those subs after an hour. I think if we can get into a situation next season where we see Chouanier be able to play 90 minutes week in and week out, he has the potential to go on and be one of the top players in this league. So for me, his stock is very much on the rise right now.
He is their starting right winger. Like, there's no doubt that he's first choice in the team. What they don't have right now is their starting left winger and Chris Nanko. And I just don't think there's a like-for-like option in the team. But I think that's the way forward if you can keep, Chouanier around the club. Smyrniotis, whenever I chatted with him over the course of the Island game, said he's been one of the players that stepped up the most for Forge. So there's no doubt about it. Chouanier, his stock's gone up. I'm going to throw a little bit of a curveball at you, Asa. Yeah. I think that Kwame Awua's stock continues to rise, because I think that Dominic Samuel played fine when he was at left back, but he's not Kwame Awua. And he's just such a big miss for this team. I think they lacked his speed going forward, his composure, his ability to get on the ball. And although he didn't play, I think that it absolutely stood out as a big miss for a core player on Forge. And although Forge has depth, they don't have the type of players that Kwame Awua is, a player that can probably play overseas or in Major League Soccer like he has before. So I think that his stock went up just by virtue of the fact that he didn't play. The team struggled at times.
Would you say then that Jonny Grant's stock went down?
Yeah, I'm gutted for him, because I think he's such a good player, and I think he's as good a defender as there is in the CPL on his day, but we know he hasn't been able to stay on the field because of injuries. And now he's going to miss another big game against Tauro because he's suspended. And, it just keeps piling up for him, right? Wasn't a good game for him by any means. I think he's so much better than that at his best. But, everyone came in a little bit cold and had to adjust. And he was the one who, just with a couple of missed time challenges, as I said, will now sit out a game. So, yeah, disappointing for him for sure.
Well, the challenges were problems that escalated for him because of poor touches on the ball. Like, when I think of Jonny Grant, I think of a player that's very good opening up his body, bringing the ball forward, comfortable on it, getting down the line. Those were 2 horrible touches on the ball. And this is a team that went from playing on an opposite surface, and we brought this up with Bobby Smyrniotis last week. You go from playing on a field turf with no surroundings, windy conditions, and PEI, to playing on a completely different condition. But I mean, this team trained on it. And typically, if you have any kind of rust, it isn't your first touch on the ball. It's really getting up to the tempo and the pace and the flow of the game. So these are 2 uncharacteristic mistakes. I have a hard time saying stock down, because I really think that it still remains to be seen how good of a player Jonny Grant can be. Yeah, we've seen it in glimpses, and Bobby Smyrniotis loves the player, and he has all the intangibles. But last night wasn't a good one. Just those. Look, your first touch has to be clean. And 2 times it wasn't, and 2 times he picks up a caution, and deserved cautions at that. He deserved to be sent off. He has to be better than that.
Well, I think everyone was struggling with the touch, especially early in the game. And then I think I saw it as well when players were coming in off the bench. Cisse had an awkward touch when he first came onto the game as well. So I think the surface played into it a little bit. Moving on then, we've admired the depth of Bobby's side in the CPL. It was tested in El Salvador. Chris Nanko out with a hamstring injury. Kwame Awua, as you mentioned, he was serving a suspension, so he's out as well. How badly did Forge miss those 2 in particular, Nanko and Awua, Ollie?
Yeah, I agree with Wheels that Awua was really missed. I think he's one of those guys with Christian and Edgar and Tristan Henry. He's just always on the field in those big moments, and they rely on him. And I think maybe if he'd been available, you could have seen Dom Samuel right back, Jonny Grant play a bit higher up the field as he did at the Island Games, and you just have a bit more security there. So we'll see what they do now. Tiso has played left back a lot, but never really for Forge. So I don't know if they really see him as a left back. They tend to use him more in midfield, but he could come in. And I think Jordan Dunstan's done well when he's played as well, so he could be an option at left back. But yeah, they'll hope to get Awuah fully fit for sure.
Well, I guess a team like Tauro, a team that is of better quality than the team that you played last night. I think there's a spot in the team for Max Tiso. I do. He brings bags of experience, international experience with Canada as well. For me, he's a player that can absolutely step into this team and do a job. And look, like Bobby's stuck with YES-VAK playing alongside Becker. I thought Paulo struggled his first, CONCACAF club competition, coming over from Europe. It's a different game, and players need to adjust. And perhaps there's a spot for Tiso in the midfield. You play a little bit more of a double pivot. Bobby has shown he's willing to change things up, generally not from the start. But I like Max Tiso for a game like this that's coming up.
Yeah, looking at that next match just briefly, and from what you saw in the match against Limeño on Thursday night, do you expect a cleaner performance? Because it was sloppy at times. We talked about the touches being a little bit off. Do you expect that now that they have that game out of the way, Gareth, the next one will be a little bit cleaner?
It better be, or they're going to be punished, or they're going to be out of this competition. I don't know much about this modern day version of Tauro, but in 2018, this was a team that beat FC Dallas in Panama. And lost 3-2 in Dallas. And you're going up against, superior competition, a team that's made it to the quarterfinal of the Concacaf Champions League, not the Concacaf League. So it's going to be a step up in quality. So everything needs to be better. The touches on the ball, the decision-making, just the work in front of goal. I thought sometimes some of the attacking players were isolated for Forge. So although they survived and got out of this one, it all needs to be better come next week if they have any hopes of advancing in this competition.
Well, one thing that's worked well for – go ahead, Ollie.
No, I was just going to say it does need to be better, but I think, to be fair to them, they haven't played in a month. The pitch was rubbish and it took some time to adjust to it. And also, I don't think they've seen a lot of Limeño. I know they got the video of the first two league games, but they don't have a lot of tape on them. And I think, David Edgar said this to me when I talked to him before the game. The first 15 minutes or so in these situations are always just about figuring out what you're facing and what the game is. And then you can kind of grow into it. And it probably took them too long to grow into it. First half wasn't good, in my opinion, but the second half was a lot better. And I think then we started to see Forge get to grips with the game and adjust all the environmental factors. And hopefully that's the kind of performance we'll see going into Tauro rather than the first half.
Just on this whole notion about the month off, I hear you, but at the same time, Limeño is 2 games into their season, and they're very poor. Like they're not a quality team. Tauro's 1 game into their season, so I mean, no one's fresh, no one's hitting the ground running here, Ollie. So look, I'm not going to make excuses for Forge. They're the champions of Canada for 2 years running. The performance that we saw in the first half was nowhere near up to their ability. And I think that they'll tell you that as well. I give them full credit for the way that they persevered. They fought. They found some bits of quality in the second half and really settled down. But that first half isn't reflective of the Canadian Premier League nor how good this Forge team is.
No, it's not. But I just don't think it was Limeño who were causing them any problems. I agree.
No, it was themselves.
It was themselves. And I just don't think that will persist into the next game when now they've kind of got their legs back underneath them, because it didn't persist in the second half. With 10 men. Even with 10 men, they were so much cleaner and so much better through that 45 minutes compared to the first one.
Yeah, one thing that we've learned about Forge is that they're generally organized. They play well together as a group. And a large reason why is because of the academy, really, Sigma. 6 Sigma players were in the starting 11 for Forge. What does that say about the academy? Could you argue that Sigma is a top academy in North America, Ollie?
Yeah, for sure it is. I think it's remarkable. And we try and talk about it a lot, but it still doesn't get enough appreciation. I don't think, they've done this without having a professional team to send the players to at the end of it, and it's only going to get better now. I think when you look at the fact that they've been finding colleges for players and different situations for players up till this point. Now they've got a professional club where maybe the next Kyle Lowry and the next Richie Lorea joins Forge at 18 and instead of going off to school. So I think this is just the beginning, and to have 6 starters in the lineup is remarkable for any single academy, particularly one of the size that Sigma has been so far.
Um, Look, I give them full credit, but to put them in the ranks of the tops academies of North America, come on. Like, let's be real here. Like, there are MLS teams that rely on their academies to fill out their first team on a regular basis. In our very own country, Toronto FC has produced 25 homegrown players that have made their way to the first team in Major League Soccer. The Vancouver Whitecaps have players all across the Canadian Premier League and within their own first team, and produce someone named Alphonso Davies. So look, full credit, the Lareyas, the Larens, the players on Forge. It's great. And I think that you hit the nail on the head. It's the fact that they're not tied to a professional club. I guess they are now in a way with Forge, because it seems that's the pipeline. But for me, the biggest difference is there's opportunity for Canadian players. Look, they're not the only academy in Ontario that's been producing very good talent or over recent years. But the problem has been there hasn't been a place for players to go. So a lot of players have gone to waste. They've gone on to play university soccer, and then the careers have fizzled out because there hasn't been that professional outlet. But now that there's that clear pipeline, that connection between Sigma and Forge, you can see some of the really good work that they've done and the players that they produce. But I think that we need to do a little bit more of a look
pump
at
the
how other pump the brakes a little bit based on other academies in North America. Other academies, the New York Red Bulls have produced fantastic players over there that have gone overseas. Like, come on, Ollie. Like, Sigma's not on that level.
I think they are. I think, firstly, when you take account of the fact that these clubs are pouring millions and millions of dollars into their academy. This is Red Bull, the company. TFC have got a state-of-the-art training ground. I think for Sigma to have produced so many, not just Forge players, but pro players who are international caliber players from an independent academy, started by two guys in Mississauga. I think the development job they've done is easily comparable to any MLS team's academy.
If you want to say pound for pound, that's fine. But that wasn't the question. And look, anything that I'm saying, it's not to take away from Bobby's done an incredible job. No one would ever try to take that away from him. But if we're going to talk to scale, if we're going to have that conversation, I just don't think that they're quite on the level of some others because of the financial backing, territorial rights, the access to bring in certain players, and also the ability to put some of these players on a profile in the shop window for bigger clubs to come and get. So there's a lot that goes into that.
Yeah, let's talk about Bobby then. It's remarkable what he's done. What is next for Bobby Smyrniotis? He's developed some of Canada's top players. He's put together. He's put this team together in this league. They continue to impress, beating international clubs. Should he be considered for a Canada job?
Sure. Obviously, I'm hoping John Herdman's going to be around for a while, because that'll mean that he's being successful with the men's national team. But when you look at, if the job was open today and you look at the list, at least of Canadian candidates, it's Mark Dos Santos, it's Bobby Smyrniotis. He's right up there. One thing I would like to see, and I've said this before, is I would like to see some of the young, talented CPL coaches who are showing what they can do get an opportunity with the U23 team or with the U20 team. Give them that little window into the international game, bring them into the Canadian soccer program as a whole, and kind of get everyone integrated and everyone working together. I think that would be a valuable thing for these coaches to experience and to continue to further their own careers.
I don't know where this Canada conversation comes about. It's a little bit disingenuous for me because John Herdman really hasn't done much wrong. There's only a limited number of coaches. Mauro Biello, a coach who had a couple of very good years with the Montreal Impact, is overseeing the under-23 program. Everything seems to be taken care of there. Would he go to the women's national team? I mean, everything's gone extremely quiet on that front. I don't know if you're hearing anything, Ollie, because I'm not. I think that there are certain coaches that are built for club football. The daily grind, the recruitment, putting the players in a position to go out and win on a week-to-week basis. I think that that's how Bobby Smyrniotis is built. I think that international football suits a certain kind of head coach. Methodical planners, people that like to do lots of work off the field and not on it. I don't think that Bobby's that. I can't see him as being a Canadian coach. I think a more likely move for him at some point is going overseas and potentially being a Canadian coach that coaches in Greece or somewhere or Belgium, where a lot of his connections are. Like, that seems to me what the next move in Bobby Smyrniotis' career would be.
You don't think it would be MLS?
Who's hiring Canadian coaches other than the Canadian teams? And I think that Vancouver is going to give Mark DeSantos time. Honestly, like, there's a West Coast vibe. Like, Pamadou did a great job. Could Pamadou be a Whitecaps coach in the future? Maybe, if he wants to stick around, if he proves that he can put together a winner.
Yeah,
Toronto FC, I don't look at in Montreal. Like, I just can't see it.
But at some point, doesn't he just have to be regarded as a great coach, and you take the nationality and the Canadian flag away from it and just look at his body of work? Shouldn't he be recognized as a great coach and get a quality job anywhere?
But yeah, we're a year and a half into the Canadian Premier League playing. Like, he's proven to us that he's been a great coach, but people are still getting to know about the Canadian Premier League. You're still building your resume, right? Like, we're so quick to crown everyone. Like, let's just let the process play out. I think that I think going on runs like this through the Concacaf League, and absolutely. And I think that he's done nothing wrong to his reputation, and he's still building something. But he's 41 years old? Ollie, like, he's still a relatively young head coach. Yeah. He has a lot of runway, and I think that he has more that he wants to achieve before making that next step.
Mm-hmm. One thing I'll say about Bobby is that he's very clear that he doesn't see MLS as the be all and end all. You know, he's been to Greece before. He's worked there. He's worked at Ajax. You know, there's a whole world out there that, you know, I think as a coach he'd like to explore eventually. But again, I do, like, I see a lot of kind of former players or coaches in some capacity being brought into the Canadian program. And I don't see why you wouldn't maybe look at bringing in a Bobby Smyrniotis as an assistant coach, as a youth coach. Just, you know, pick his brain a little bit, let him pick the brain of John Herdman and have that kind of working relationship. I think that would be beneficial for everyone.
Can I just say, Asa, my other man in the match was Bobby Smyrniotis, because he went full CONCACAF last night with the black t-shirt and jeans on the touchline. That is a CONCACAF or South American look for a head coach. He fully embraced it, and I fully support that look.
I thought he had a bit of a Bruce Springsteen look to him. Real edgy black tee, jeans.
Loved it.
Topical.
With the mask.
Loved it.
I liked the CONCACAF mask. I'd like to get hold of one of those.
Yeah. Well, speaking of CONCACAF and CONCACAF, Oliver, prior to yesterday's match, there was an article on campl.ca that didn't sit so well with you. I believe the term CONCACAF was featured prominently. Can you explain what the article was about and why you believe it's possibly problematic?
It wasn't the article. Like, it was a good article with some fun anecdotes in there from years gone by. I just think the mindset in general that we go into in these CONCACAF games sometimes is a problem. Like, we've got to stop using this CONCACAF idea as a crutch for why our teams don't perform in the region. Like, I saw when Jonny Grant got sent off, people saying, "Oh, here we go again." He deserved to get sent off. It was 2 yellow cards. Like, there was no CONCACAFing there. So, like, I appreciate that the refereeing can be not great at times, and players are going to roll around when they get any touch, and, you know, the pitches aren't always great. So you have to deal with those factors. But I think if you go into these places with a mentality that there's going to be problems and you're going to struggle because of these factors, you will, right? Like, it's just inevitable. So it was encouraging to see Forge go down to 10 men and not just crumble and actually play through it. And keep their heads about them, because that's something that, you know, Canadian teams, club and country, haven't always done in the past.
Well said.
It's like someone being haunted by their exes and just worried that they're going to have their heart broken once again without just giving it an honest go.
Yeah, for sure.
And this is a new era as well, isn't it, Ollie? The small man's mentality here needs to go by the wayside. And if anything, going down to CONCACAF, we should be steamrolling these clubs and these teams at both the club and the international level. The resources that are now being put into the Canadian game, there's no comparison. And for me, there's more pressure now on these CONCACAF nations to step up their game. Because it's like, look, if you're trying to recruit, I'm just looking at this from a national team perspective. If you're trying to recruit players that are playing overseas in big European leagues to play for the Canadian men's national team, I do think that there's an issue trying to sell games against countries, you know, like El Salvador, or, you know, playing St. Lucia, or you're playing whoever. These other nations need to step up their infrastructure, step up their game to make some of these ties that much more attractive. Look at Dominic Yankov. Like, he's playing for Bulgaria.
Yeah.
Like, he decided to play for Bulgaria. What's Bulgaria going to qualify for? Nothing.
Right.
But he's hoping that he's in the shop window when they go out and get steamrolled 6-0 by Germany, because he gets to play Germany. Or he could come play for Canada and he goes down and plays Martinique. I mean, this is what I think it's a liability, you know? So this whole CONCACAF term, we need to flip it around from being something that is something bad that's going to happen to us, and turn it into something that where CONCACAF, these nations need to improve in order to put Canada on a proper level.
Yeah.
For
well
sure.
said. One last note on last night's match before we look ahead to their next opponent, Panamanian side Tauro FC. You mentioned, you touched on a little bit earlier, Ollie, so I'll go to Gareth on this one. What does the win for Forge on Thursday night mean for Forge and for the CPL?
Well, if they can somehow make it into the CONCACAF Champions League by not going through Toronto FC, I mean, what an advantage there. And look, by virtue of the fact that Tauro's just starting their season, perhaps they can catch them on a good night and kind of move forward in that competition. I think as much as it's big for Forge, the club itself, I think it would be bigger if the game was being played in Hamilton. I think that that's how you build up the collective memory of a fan base, get a big crowd inside your own building, and beat a club that's had some success in the past. But I think this is bigger for the Canadian Premier League, just the league in general, showing that potentially, I know that Ollie has some thoughts on this, being granted guaranteed qualification into the CONCACAF Champions League and not having to go through the CONCACAF League in the first place, right? Because that's what it's about. As long as this like archaic structure's in place where the Canadian MLS teams can only go through and qualify for the CONCACAF Champions League by winning the Voyageurs Cup, it's going to be difficult for Canadian Premier League clubs. And I think that they should, and perhaps when the league grows and there is some continental success, that they can go on and get that qualification automatically. So I think it's big for the Canadian Premier League and teams going forward.
Yeah, I agree. And
go ahead.
Sorry, yeah, it goes back to Wills's point about just improving the quality of football in this region and kind of the stage as a whole, right? Why it's not just a Canadian thing either. Like, why doesn't Saprissa, when they win the Costa Rican League, qualify for the Champions League? Like that's insane to me. You know, one of the big kind of giants of this region has to play through this whole qualification process to get to play against, you know, Toronto FC or Atlanta or Tigres or whoever it is. I think there's so much potential in this region in terms of what the Champions League can be, what international football can be, but we still don't have the structures in place to really make these competitions what they can be. And I know there's all kinds of complications in terms of aligning the American and Mexican calendars and things like that. But I really think, and you know, it might already be a little too late, but I think if they don't figure this stuff out, then MLS and Liga MX will do it themselves, because I think they're starting to see the potential of getting more of a continental competition going. And yeah, it's got to change. We've got to have a proper Champions League rather than two countries being in it.
Yeah. So do you think that will be changing soon? Do you see that possibly changing in the next 2 years, Gareth?
I have no idea. Honestly, I have no idea.
Not a clue. Like they just came up with the Concacaf League, right? So
it is all very new, right? I guess that's the one thing that you can take away from this, is that it is all new. These rules are just being made in the last like 3 or 4 years. So maybe there will be some change. And the Canadian Premier League is only just a couple years old as well.
Yeah, I think there could be changes. You know, so much has been in flux, again, club and country in CONCACAF over the past few years, and now you've got COVID. So I think when we come back to business, I think worldwide in football, when we come back to kind of business as usual, there could be, you know, we're seeing it in England, right? There could be major changes to the structure of things and what the game looks like.
Right. And this will take backing for the Canadian Soccer Association as well to go on and back getting that guaranteed spot in the CONCACAF Champions League. And they need to push and lean on MLS to, you know, so the U.S. Soccer Federation isn't handing out, you know, you go on and win the regular season in Major League Soccer, you get a guaranteed berth to the CONCACAF Champions League if you're an American team.
Right.
I don't get that. Like, it's not like you don't qualify for the Europa League if you're Cardiff City or Swansea City, like playing in the Premier League. I don't I don't understand that. And I think that the U.S. Soccer Federation's bullied the CSA to a certain degree on this front. And hopefully with this newfound relationship with the Mexican Federation, the U.S. Federation, and the Canadian Soccer Association building into 2026, perhaps there are more areas where they can all be aligned and things like this get ironed out.
We're hoping. All right. One last look then at their next opponent, Tauro FC. What do we know about them, and who would you say is the favorites in this match? I'll go to you first, Ollie.
I think Tauro is the favorite for sure. Just having home advantage, and this is a team I can't say I know a lot about them, but they did, as we also mentioned earlier, knock out FC Dallas a couple of years ago in the Champions League. So they're no pushovers for sure. They've played in some big games in the Champions League, and this will be another step up from Limeño. I'm pretty confident on that.
Same thing. I don't have much to add. It's going to be a bigger test. I think it's going to be, that was a good warm-up game for Forge. Honestly, I think if they went in cold, straight to Tauro, that would be maybe a little bit of an ask that's too much. But the fact they do have 90 minutes under their belt, the fact they did face some adversity, the fact that they did score a late goal has got to give this group a lot of confidence. And Ollie, these Forge players. You just spent a month plus with them. They're not a group that's lacking in confidence, are they? They have players. They have players like Edgar and Becker who played all over the world, and I mentioned Tissot as well. Babuli, same thing. I think there's a swagger to this Forge team, and I think that will hold them well. They just need to keep their heads level-headed and stay above water for the first 15, 20 minutes and try to put some pressure and ask some questions of Tauro. And if they can do that, then who knows? Perhaps another upsets in the cards. And I think you documented it, Ollie. The path after Tauro can be quite kind for Forge in this competition.
Yeah, probably a Jamaican side if they can get through this one. So that's a winnable game, I think, when you look at the quality of that league. And then you're knocking on the door of a semi-final in the Champions League. So big opportunity for sure.
Getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. But obviously Tauro's the next one. That's November 3rd.
It's exciting.
Yeah, it certainly is. We will all be watching that one. Probably do another hangout show after that match to review and reflect on that one. Hopefully it's another win for Forge FC. That's all the time we have for today's hangout. For Gareth Wheeler and Oliver Platt, we thank you for watching. Thanks to Armin Padakian for his work behind the scenes, and producer Kyle for setting up the show. Make sure you subscribe to One Soccer if you haven't already. It is the home of the Canadian Championship. Till the next hangout, take care, stay safe.